I accidentally once said, so in the plan of salvation, the three kingdoms is called die Drei Reiche, but I accidentally said, I think I said die Dritten Reich, and if you know what the Third Reich is, it was kind of Hitler's like call to power and everything. And I said that in the middle of a lesson. Luckily, it was with a less active member, and he just kind of laughed and he just said, "Oh, I hope not," because I said after we die, we come to the Third Reich. And he just says, "Whoa, that'd be too bad," like I hope not. And then I realized what I said, and it was great. Probably when it was super misty and super snowy in one of my areas in Ansbach. It was just couldn't see anything. Well, I saw a few hedgehogs, but we once went to actually a park with some members where we were able to go in and actually walk with the monkeys. And one of the monkeys actually bit one of the sisters on the head, right on the top. I'm actually dating this sister now, which is kind of funny, but totally bit her on the head. She was okay. I learned a little bit better how to cook. I also kind of just learned to, I don't know, I kind of learned how to like contact people, and it kind of helped like when I came back from my mission, like talking to girls, because you're just like, hey, like start a conversation. One of the hardest was kind of when you had to say goodbye to someone that you've been working with for a long time and kind of been trying to help them along their way. And or every single time you met someone for maybe the first time and they just said no. And it was just kind of realizing that it wasn't your fault because there wasn't really much more that you could do. It was just because the person said no, and it was only your job to invite them, give them the choice. And then when they say no, it was just kind of sad every time. You're just like, man, it kind of just hurt a little bit, I once had stinging nettle in a salad. We had members that put stinging nettle and dandelions in the salad. Of course, it wasn't the part that would actually sting you, but it was just interesting. They used everything from their garden, like down to like the dandelions in this salad. And it wasn't that bad. It just tasted kind of like grass and like the outside. We were riding on a train, me and my companion. It was my second area, probably my third transfer in, and we were on a train and we're going through a tunnel. And as we're going through the tunnel, we hear the horn of the train go, and I'm thinking, oh, that's weird. And then we hear the brakes screech, and then we actually come to a stop in this tunnel. And we're all just sitting here thinking, well, what's going on? And this intercom came over. I didn't understand it all the way because it was kind of new, but I basically got that someone had walked onto the track, and that there was someone on the track, and that we needed to figure this out. And as we're sitting here in this train, some people were just wondering what was going on. One lady was getting annoyed because she had an appointment, which I thought was pretty interesting because there was someone that was probably just died. And then finally they eventually opened up one of the doors and let us all out. And we just were just a few meters away from the platform, and they just had police there and medics, and they were telling everyone to like kind of stay away, and they were escorting us out because we had actually hit somebody on a train underground. And it was pretty unnerving. You kind of were kind of grateful to be alive, and you realized how fragile it was. And it was just crazy. Just didn't expect it to happen that day. I think one of the greatest life lessons I learned, I guess, like excluding the fact that the gospel was true and how much that kind of just helped me realize how important everything is that I do now, and kind of the gravity of everything and the consequences. But it was also just kind of figuring out who I was. And I learned that you should just be who you are, and help and have Jesus Christ, help you be a better you, but also not try to worry too much about what other think. And even on the mission especially, because you kind of get into that idea that you have to be the perfect missionary, you have to be this robot that, can get everything done and is perfectly obedient and everything. And we should strive for perfect obedience. We should strive to do our best, but we should also realize that God called you on a mission. He didn't call some robot missionary on a mission. He wants you to touch people's lives in only ways that you can. He knows you, he knows your weaknesses, he knows your strengths. And if you let him use those, and if you realize that you can be yourself on the mission, you can have fun on the mission, follow the rules, because that's how you have real fun. Because otherwise you just get in trouble and feel bad, and it's wrong. But if you just follow the rules and, remember to have fun on the mission, embrace those moments where, just kind of be silly, and also just remember that God called you on the mission. There was one person that was really amazing. He was blind from birth, and he just had such a powerful testimony. We taught him, he was a referral actually from another member who was also blind. And I only came in probably about halfway through the lessons, and just seeing this man, how much he taught me when we were trying to sit here and teach him, and he would just expand on some thing, and he would he was just so down to earth, so faithful. He just believed, and he just found out and knew. And when he once got up and shared his testimony at sacrament meeting, and he was talking about how he got his testimony, and that was I was trying to translate it at the same time to someone that was sitting there that didn't speak German, and it was kind of hard because it was just so amazing. It was just so, like, wow. Just, he was I kind of want to be like him. I don't really necessarily want to be blind, but I want to have his, like, devotion, his just, I guess, almost like childish belief in a way, but, like, it's more like that, just kind of to accept and know that the gospel is true. That, like, child's trust is just like, yes, it's true. There's just been a lot of times where, I guess those times when someone had said their first prayer, it was incredibly, when they kind of understood what you're trying to say, about the prayer. And one of the most amazing were those people that weren't from a Christian background, that didn't understand prayer necessarily. And just to hear kind of the sincerity, because they don't have those stereotypical, like, what we have, as Mormons, sometimes we get into that kind of ideas, like, well, Heavenly Father, we're grateful for this, we're grateful for this. And they would just sit there and they'd be like, God, I really am trying to figure these things out, and it was just this really just sincere prayer. And every single time it was just made me think, man, I need to be more sincere with my prayers. But you could just feel that spirit, that sincerity was always there. A great way to pack is, at least what I think is a great way to pack. Everyone will make fun of me, but, like, if you roll up your clothes and stuff, and, like, when they're more compact, you can fit them in things. Put things in your shoes. There's a lot of space in your shoes. Put, like, a belt or ties or whatever. Another great technique is if you don't have already those vacuum sealing bags, if you just get a big garbage bag and you put it around, like, clothes. It doesn't work for books. Put it around clothes or something, and you just stick a vacuum hose in there, and if you stick it on the clothes, you can suck out all the air of the clothes, and you get something that's about this big to something that's about that big. Can you see that in the thing? Okay. And it saved me a few times when I couldn't fit quite everything. Try to pack light. Ship things home as much as you can that you're not going to use. For instance, souvenirs or something. Ship them home as soon as you can if you have a cheap way of doing it, because it'll save you a lot in the long run.